The scorching summer continues. Silveroni of G&A Reviews here with a servant spotlight for your favorite boxing saint, Ruler Martha. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively and an overall grade comparing her to how she stacks up to the other 4-star servants. I also have a spotlight out for the other 4-star summer servant, Casta Marie, so do check that out right after this, but for now, on to Martha's stats. Martha has a max HP of 11,250 and a max attack of 9,546, which becomes 10,500 when accounting for the ruler damage modifier. There are no other 4-star rulers to compare Martha to, but overall her HP is about average for a 4-star servant, while her attack is very high. Taking a look at her skills, Martha's first skill is Holy Maiden of the Waterside, rank B+. It increases her Noble Phantasm gauge between 20 and 30% depending on level, and if there is water on the field it will also increase her attack between 10 and 20% for 3 turns depending on level. Her second skill is Natural Body C, rank A, which applies Nullify debuff 1 time and restores her HP between 1000 and 3000 depending on level. Finally, her last skill is Limbs of Jacob, rank B, which applies an attack buff against Divine, Evil Demon, and Undead enemies for 1 turn between 50 and 100% depending on level. Martha's only passive is Magic Resistance rank EX, which increases her debuff resist by 25%. As for her deck and Noble Phantasm, Martha has a full-on Buster deck with Quick, Arts, Buster, 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 and a Buster Noble Phantasm. Her Noble Phantasm is Tarasuke. It decreases enemy defense for 3 turns between 10 and 50% depending on overcharge, and it also deals a significant amount of damage to a single enemy between 600 and 1000% depending on level. Taking a closer look at Martha's cards, we see that her Quick card hits 4 times, her Arts hits 3 times, her Buster hits once, and her extra attack hits 5 times. She has a Noble Phantasm gain rate of 0.76% and a star rate of 10%. She has below average Noble Phantasm gain and star generating due to the heavy Buster deck. Ruler Martha is one of the most unique 4-stars in the game, being the only ruler in that rarity. She's also unique in being the only fully offensive ruler, which is odd considering that rulers are a class built for defense and support, not necessarily damage. But this does work in Martha's favor as it makes up for her not so impressive HP. Because she takes half damage from almost every enemy in the game, she effectively has twice as much HP. She also has an effective skill set for emphasizing her offensive nature. Holy Maiden of the Waterside gives her a strong 30% NP charge and a 20% attack buff for 3 turns if she's on a stage with water. The charge is fantastic as it helps make up for her really low NP gain overall, and you want to rely on this to Noble Phantasm a lot. The attack buff is good, but extremely conditional and thus unreliable. Where Martha's true power comes from is her Limbs of Jacob skill. It grants a gigantic 100% damage buff against Divine, Evil Demon, and Undead enemies. This is comparable to Skahak's anti-Divine skill, and it gives Martha extraordinary burst damage against Divine enemies, of which many servants fall under. In addition, many generic enemies and mini-bosses, like demons and ghosts, fall under the Evil Demon and Undead categories. So this is a gigantic buff that covers a good portion of all the enemies in the game. Finally, Natural Body is Martha's only defensive skill, and it grants her a strong heal and the ability to nullify a debuff. It's worth noting that this does stack with itself. Combined with her resistance to nearly all enemies, this heal is very powerful because it effectively heals for 6,000 points of damage on a 5-turn cooldown. And of course, nullifying debuffs helps Martha avoid stuns or attack debuffs. Overall, focus on leveling Limbs of Jacob first. It's by far her strongest skill, followed by Natural Body for the reliable heal, and then finally Holy Maiden because the buff is situational. Martha's Noble Phantasm is a simple, single target Buster Noble Phantasm that hits for incredible damage and has a decent defense debuff built into it. It's very effective for leading off with in a Noble Phantasm chain or a Buster Brave chain, very similar to Herc's Noble Phantasm. As you can tell, Martha is built for damage, and being a ruler is both her biggest asset and her biggest weakness. The ruler class works for Martha in that it allows her to deal ridiculous damage to enemies with her buster attacks while simultaneously being very defensive. She doesn't need a babysitter like most berserkers do, and against divine enemies she can do comparable damage to them thanks to her crazy high attack steroid. So she's a top tier anti-divine servant. However, as a ruler she also does not have class advantage on anyone aside from berserkers who also have class advantage on her. So even with that 1.1 times class damage modifier, without her buffs she will be out damaged by any servant who does have class advantage. In addition, her first attack buff is so situational it almost never comes into play. Water stages are extremely rare outside of Okeanos and Summer. Despite those weaknesses though, Martha does excel at being an all-purpose, self-sufficient attacker. You can bring her to nearly any fight and she'll perform well, making her more consistent and versatile than most servants, and perfect for rounding out any offensive team, or even being used as your primary attacker in any situation without having to worry about the glass cannon nature of berserkers. Building a team around Martha is very simple and straightforward. You prioritize damage buffers. Because both of her buffs are so situational, it helps to have someone who can provide Martha with high uptime, consistent attack buffs. Waver, Hans, Liz Lancer, Caesar, Shakespeare, Leonidas, Shuten, Nightingale, Nero Bride, Helena, and Iskander are ideal for this. She also pairs well with other offensive buster servants who can benefit from the higher chance of buster chains and can provide buffs like Ozzy, Gil, Arturia, and Rama. If you want to go for more defense on Martha, then Mosh, George, Media Lily, Jean, Irisville, and Tamamo are helpful. Martha's Bondcraft Essence is Holy Knuckle. It increases the buster card effectiveness of all allies by 15%. Very good if you have her paired with other offensive buster servants. Otherwise, prioritize maxing her own damage with craft essences like True Samadhi Flame, Limited Zero, Maiden Leading Chaldea, or Golden Sumo. You can also go for maximizing NP damage with Black Grail, Heaven's Feel, Halloween Princess, or Go West. And if you want to have a little bit of fun with her ruler class, then go for Maiden Halloween, Bridal Training, or Iron Willed Training. Overall, Ruler Martha is a strong offensive servant that doesn't have the hang-up of being a glass cannon. Her high attack and triple buster deck give her very high and very consistent damage. Her anti-divine and undead skill is one of the best buffs in the game, and her defensive class and heal give her incredibly high survivability and versatility, eliminating the need for a dedicated healer like most offensive servants require. However, her buffs are very situational, making them less reliable, and her water side attack buff will almost never trigger. She lacks class advantage on anyone, so unless she's fighting a divine enemy, her damage will pale in comparison to almost any other servant that does have class advantage. And despite the extreme tankiness, she still does lack hard defense. Despite those weaknesses though, her versatility and overall usefulness in almost any situation really lets her shine when compared to most other 4 stars, so she gets an A- from me. Martha Ruler is a pretty controversial figure. A lot of people either view her as borderline OP for her high defense and high attack, or they view her as weak because her buffs are so situational. I fall into the former camp obviously. In my opinion, Martha's role as an anti-divine servant and just crazy good defense as well as high damage means that she will always have a good role to play on your team no matter who you're facing. And those are my thoughts on Ruler Martha. Like I said, controversial, and I know some people will disagree with me, so let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you haven't already, do check out that Casta Spotlight, link both on screen right now and in the description. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over at our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter. And I will see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.
Oh, well, what's the thing? You think it'll kill?
I don't know. Might need a crit.
Yeah, maybe.
This is tense. How do you think I feel right now? Do it, Martha! I don't know. I don't know if this will do it.
Oh,
it does!
Oh, yeah.
We got it. And she got the crit anyway. Fuck you, Tristan. Go, Martha. Team Martha.
Wait.